Hello and welcome to Current News. My name is Neel. In this special segment, we will discuss news which is important from the perspective of your exam. The bulletin of the last whole week which might echo in your question paper in the examination hall. Let's begin with the headlines. New guidelines issued to curb misleading advertisements, ban on ads targeting child and surrogate ads. Action will be taken on violations of guidelines. Central government approves Memorandum of Association for BIMSTEC Technology Transfer Facility. It aims at transferring technology among member countries. Agreement for this facility signed in the 5th BIMSTEC Summit. Data of Periodic Labour Force Survey 2020-21 released. Unemployment rate declined by 0.6% during 2021. India's labour force participation rate stood at 41.6%. Researchers found microplastic particles in fresh Antarctic snow. An average of 29 microplastic particles were found in per liter of melted snow. These particles can increase the rate of melting of Antarctic snow. And Agneepath Scheme announced for recruitment in armed forces. Agniveers will be recruited in the armed forces under this scheme. It aims at reducing the average age of the soldiers. Now let's begin with news of the week. Recently, a bench of Telangana High Court has stayed the order of a single judge sentencing an IPS officer and 3 other police officials in a contempt of court case. In fact, these police officers were sentenced 4 weeks of incarceration by a single judge bench of the Telangana High Court as it held them guilty of contempt of court. The contempt of court petition in the Telangana High Court was filed by Mr. Vinod Kumar. Petition was filed against the police officials for willful breach and disobedience of Supreme Court's directions in Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar case. The petitioner alleged that the charge sheet was filed against him in the trial court for dowry harassment and domestic violence case, while no notices were issued to him under Section 41 of the CRPC by the police. It must be noted that Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar case is related to the issue of dowry in India and the rights of an accused for the same. This matter is associated with Section 498A of the IPC and Section 4 of the Dowry Prohibition Act. The Supreme Court had issued certain directives for police officials in this case in 2014. One of the directives was that the police should issue a notice under Section 41 of the CRPC before arresting a person if the punishment in the case is less than 7 years. The Telangana High Court had found the police officials guilty in this respect. A cardinal fact is that Article 129 of the Indian Constitution mentions the Supreme Court as a court of record. Furthermore, this article also empowers the apex court to punish for the contempt of itself. Similarly, the High Court derives its jurisdiction to punish for contempt from Article 215 of Indian Constitution. Also, according to Contempt of Courts Act 1971, contempt refers to the offence of showing disrespect to the dignity or authority of a court. Recently, the centre announced new guidelines to curb misleading advertisements and surrogate ads. The new guidelines on prevention of misleading advertisements and endorsements for misleading advertisements 2022 seek to regulate advertisements targeting children. Moreover, these guidelines imposed strict norms on those advertisements that seek to lure consumers, offering discounts and free claims. However, under the Central Consumer Protection Act, there are provisions to handle misleading advertisements affecting consumers' rights, but to make them more explicit, clear to the industry, and facilitate consumer awareness, the government came out with these guidelines. These also forbid advertisements of such product or service that claim any health or nutritional benefit without being adequately and scientifically substantiated by a recognized body. These guidelines stipulate that disclaimer should not attempt to hide material information with respect to any claim made in such advertisement. Besides, clear guidelines are laid for duties of manufacturers, service providers, advertisers, and advertising agencies. It is worth mentioning that surrogate advertising is the concept where one product which cannot be advertised is plugged via an advertisement for another product. For example, products like alcohol and tobacco cannot be directly advertised. Against such a backdrop, another product is used as a surrogate for advertising these products. For instance, advertising alcohol by using soda water as a surrogate or tobacco by using cardamom. It is to be noted that these guidelines will be applicable to advertisements published on all platforms like print, television, and online. This will also apply to government advertisements issued by PSUs engaged in providing consumer services. These guidelines, notified by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, have come into force with immediate effect. Recently, the Ministry of State for Personal, Public Grievances and Pensions released the second edition of NESDA, that is, National E-Governance Service Delivery Assessment 2021. The second edition of NESDA focuses on assessing the e-governance service delivery system of state and union territory governments and the effectiveness of central ministries in delivering online services to citizens. The assessment includes services in 7 sectors such as finance, labor and employment, education, local governance and utility services, social welfare, environment and tourism. In addition, the portals of state and union territories and central ministries were divided into 2 categories. The first category, that is state, UT or central ministry portals, included portals of the respective governments which provide single window access to information and service links. These portals were assessed on 4 parameters such as accessibility, content availability, ease of use, and information security and privacy. On the other hand, service portals were included under the second category, that is state, UT, central ministry service portals. These portals focus on the digital delivery of services and provide information related to services. These service portals were assessed on 3 additional parameters, that is end service delivery, integrated service delivery, and status and request tracking. In NESDA 2021, 4 groups, namely Northeast and Hill State groups, Union Territory groups, Remaining States Groups A and Remaining States Group B, have been formed for ranking of states and union territories. In the category of state, UT, central ministry portals, Nagaland ranked first in the Northeast and Hill States group, Jammu and Kashmir ranked first in the Union Territories group, Kerala ranked first in the Remaining States Group A, and Odisha ranked first in the Remaining States Group B. Whereas in the category of service portals, Meghalaya ranked first in the Northeast and Hill States group, Jammu and Kashmir ranked first in the Union Territories group, Punjab ranked first in the Remaining States Group A, and Rajasthan ranked first in the Remaining States Group B. Ministry of Home Affairs was ranked first in the category of state, UT, central ministry portals, and the Central Public Procurement Portal of the Ministry of Finance ranked first in the category of state, UT, central ministry service portals. It is worth mentioning that the NESDA was formed by the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances in 2019. NESDA helps the respective governments improve their delivery of citizen-centric services and shares the best practices across the country for all states, UTs and central ministries to emulate. The biennial study assesses state, union territories and focus central ministries on the effectiveness of e-governance service delivery. Recently, a delegation of MLAs from Gujarat Legislative Assembly visited Uttar Pradesh Legislative Assembly. This visit was aimed at learning the novel e-Vidhan system for paperless proceedings that has been adopted by UP State Assembly. Uttar Pradesh is one of the few state legislatures in India that has implemented the digital Vidhan Sabha system or e-Vidhan system. In fact, e-Vidhan system for paperless proceedings has been facilitated through the introduction of NEVA or National e-Vidhan Application System. It is worth mentioning that NEVA is a system for digitizing legislative bodies of all Indian states and the Parliament. It includes a website and a mobile app on which House proceedings, starred or unstarred questions and answers, committee reports, etc. will be available. The NEVA system has been developed to make all the work and data related to legislative bodies available online for citizens and members of the assemblies. Furthermore, the system has been introduced to streamline the information related to various state legislatures and eliminate the use of paper in day-to-day functioning. Consequently, several thousand tons of paper will be saved, which in turn will help in saving lakhs of trees annually. It is to be noted that Nagaland became the first state in India to fully implement the NEVA or NEVA system in March 2022. Also, Himachal Pradesh's Legislative Assembly had launched the NEVA system as a pilot project in 2014. A cardinal fact is that government of Dubai became the world's first government to go 100% paperless in December 2021. Recently, the Union Cabinet has approved a Memorandum of Association for the establishment of BIMSTEC Technology Transfer Facility or TTF. It is worth mentioning that the BIMSTEC Technology Transfer Facility or Centre is to be set up at Colombo, Sri Lanka. The agreement for setting up this facility was signed by the BIMSTEC member countries at the 5th BIMSTEC Summit held at Colombo in March 2022. A Memorandum of Association is an important document related to the main objectives and goals of an organization. It is to be noted that this technology transfer facility will facilitate the transfer of technologies in various priority areas among the member states. These key areas include biotechnology, nanotechnology, information and communication technology, space technology applications, agricultural technology, pharmaceutical technology automation, renewable energy technology automation, nuclear technology, e-waste and solid waste management technology, climate change adaptation related technologies, etc. Moreover, the TTF shall have a governing board and the overall control of activities of the TTF shall be vested in the governing board. The governing board shall consist of one nominee from each member state. BIMSTEC stands for Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. This multilateral regional organization came into existence in 1997 through the Bangkok Declaration and it is headquartered in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Initially, BIMSTEC consisted of only 4 countries, namely Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka and Thailand. Later on, Myanmar, Nepal and Bhutan were also included in BIMSTEC. It has now 7 member countries. Recently, the Periodic Labour Force Survey for the year 2020-21 was released by the Ministry of Statistics and Programme Implementation. The report claims that the unemployment rate declined by 0.6% in the year 2020-21. At present, the unemployment rate is 4.2%. This means only 4.2% of adults who looked for jobs could not get any work in rural and urban areas of the country in 2020-21. However, the unemployment rate was 4.8% in 2019-20. Also, rural areas recorded an unemployment rate of 3.3% and urban areas recorded an unemployment rate of 6.7%. It suggests that it is more difficult to get employed in urban areas than in rural areas. However, people migrate towards urban areas in search of employment. Besides, labor force participation rate during 2020-21 was 41.6%, while during 2019-20 it was around 40%. Labor force participation rate is the percentage of the population aged 15 years or beyond which is either employed or looking for employment. It includes the employed individuals as well as unemployed individuals. According to the report, the worker population ratio or WPR in the year 2020-21 was 39.8%, which was higher than the previous year's WPR of 38.2%. Worker population ratio is the population which is employed. This report also mentions that at present the migration rate is 28.9%, and out of which 4.4% migration is due to employment. Recently, the World Investment Report was floated by UNCTAD or United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. This report is premised upon the global trends of foreign direct investment or FDI. According to the publication, India's performance has been quite dismal. FDI's inflows shrank to $45 billion in 2021 from $64 billion in 2020. A silver lining is that the country jumped one notch up to attain the 7th position among the top 10 recipients of FDI despite a 30% decline in the same. Moreover, among the top 10 economies, only India saw a decline in its inflows. Besides, the top recipient of FDI was the US at $367 billion, followed by China at $181 billion and Hong Kong at $141 billion. It is worth mentioning that FDI is a process of capital investment whereby residents of one country acquire ownership of assets associated with production, distribution and other activities in a firm of other country. Moreover, UNCTAD was established in 1964 by the United Nations General Assembly as a permanent intergovernmental body. This organization also reports to the United Nations General Assembly and the Economic and Social Council. It is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. According to a recent study published in the Genetics in Medicine journal, around 1 in 500 men could be carrying an extra X or Y chromosome. This puts them at increased risk of diseases such as type 2 diabetes, atherosclerosis and thrombosis. It is worth mentioning that this study was premised Upon the analysis of genetic data collected on over 2 lakh men aged 40 to 70 from UK Biobank, the researchers found 356 men who carried either an extra X chromosome or an extra Y chromosome. It is to be noted that the 23rd pair of chromosomes in human is different in both the sexes, which is known as the sex chromosome. These sex chromosomes are X and Y, and they determine the biological sex of a human. Males usually have one X and one Y chromosome called XY chromosomes, while females have two X chromosomes called XX chromosomes. However, some males also may have XXY or XYY chromosomes due to the presence of an extra X or an extra Y chromosome. In this study, the researchers identified men with these extra chromosomes. They also found that men with an extra X or XSY chromosome had much higher chances of reproductive problems, including a threefold higher risk of delayed puberty or a fourfold higher risk of being childless. Also, these men had significantly lower blood concentrations of testosterone. However, men with an extra Y or XYY chromosome appear to have normal reproductive function, but men with either XSY or XYY chromosome had higher risks of several other health conditions like type 2 diabetes, venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, etc. Recently, Russia's Rosatom State Corporation has supplied TVS-2M nuclear fuel for Unit 1 and 2 of Kundakulam nuclear power plant in India. TVS-2M fuel is reliable and cost efficient than other fuels being used. TVS-2M is a fuel assembly in which uranium is used as a fuel by filling it in thin tubes. TVS-2M assembly contains 7.6% more fuel material as compared to the earlier fuel bundles. Besides, the special feature of Kundakulam fuel in particular is the new generation anti-debris filter, protecting bundles from debris damage. After deploying the TVS-2M fuel assemblies, the reactor will start operating within a fuel cycle of 18 months. It means that the reactor, which had to be stopped every 12 months to remove the used fuel and to insert and maintain new fuel bundles, will be shut down every 18 months from now onwards. It is to be noted that the Kundakulam nuclear plant is the largest nuclear power plant in India. It is located at Kundakulam in Tirunelveli district of Tamil Nadu. At present, power generation work is being done in Unit 1 and Unit 2 of this power plant. However, Units 3, 4, 5 and 6 of this power plant are under construction. The total power generation capacity of this power plant is 6,000 megawatts. It has been established by the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited in collaboration with a Russian company. Recently, the findings published in the Cryosphere Journal brought to light a serious threat to the Antarctic region. According to the report, scientists have claimed the presence of microplastics in the freshly fallen Antarctic snow for the first time. Scientists have stated that these plastic pieces have the potential to influence the climate by accelerating melting of ice. The diameter of microplastic particles is less than 5 mm and they are used for commercial purposes. A student from the University of Canterbury, New Zealand, had travelled to Antarctica in 2019 and tested 19 snow samples collected from Ross ice shelf in Antarctica. It was found in the test that microplastic particles were present in all the collected snow samples. Moreover, the researchers found an average of 29 microplastic particles per liter of melted snow. This concentration was higher than marine concentrations reported previously from the surrounding Ross Sea and the Antarctic sea ice. This report explicitly suggests that the Antarctic ice region is affected by microplastic pollution. It is worth mentioning that India had banned single-used plastics in 2019. Also, the Government of India aims to eliminate all single-use plastics in the country by 2022. Recently, the central government unveiled the Agneepath Scheme. Under this scheme, Indian youth will be enrolled in the Indian Armed Forces for a period of 4 years. The individuals selected under this scheme will be known as Agniveers. It is a transformative initiative that will provide a youthful profile to the armed forces and also reduce their expenditure. Under this scheme, 75% of the recruited Agniveers will leave the service in just 4 years. Only 25% of them will be retained for another 15 years under the permanent commission. This new scheme is only for personnel below officer ranks, that is, those who do not join the forces as commissioned officers. Aspirants between the ages of 17.5 years and 21 years will be eligible to apply. However, the centre recently increased the upper age limit for the recruitment process for the Agnipath scheme for 2022 to 23 years amid nationwide protests. In fact, it has not been possible to undertake the recruitment during the last 2 years due to COVID pandemic. Hence, the government has decided that a one-time waiver shall be granted for the proposed recruitment cycle for 2022. Once selected, the aspirants will go through training for 6 months and will then be deployed for 3.5 years. During this period, they will get a starting salary of Rs 30,000 along with additional benefits which will go up to Rs 40,000 by the end of the 4-year service. Also, on the completion of the 4-year period, each Agniveer will get a lump sum of Rs 11.71 lakhs at lump sum amount under the Seva Nidhi package. This amount shall be tax-free. For this purpose, some amount will be deducted from their salary and will be deposited in the Agniveer Corps funds, and the same amount will also be contributed by the government in this fund. Recently, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI, has stated in a report that for the first time since the Cold War, the global nuclear arsenal is expected to boost in the coming decades. SIPRI is an independent international institute established in 1966 dedicated to research into conflict, armaments, arms control and disarmament. This development is alarming as it could reverse a decades-long trend of reduced nuclear stockpiles. According to SIPRI, the global inventory of warheads had declined to 12,705 from more than 34,000 by the beginning of 2022. However, it is now expected to increase again in the coming years. It is worth mentioning that according to the previously published report of SIPRI, India's share in global nuclear weapons was only 1%. In addition, India's military expenditure increased to $76.6 billion in 2021, which was 0.9% higher than 2020. Furthermore, India ranks third globally in terms of military expenditure. Let us now look at 5 questions based on today's bulletin.
Questions for this series are: first question is, consider the following statements. 1. National E-Vidhan application is a system to digitize legislative bodies of all Indian states and parliament. 2. Nagaland is the first Indian state to implement the National E-Vidhan application system. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, or neither 1 nor 2? Next question is, consider the following statements with reference to BIMSTEC Technology Transfer Facility. 1. It is being established in Colombo, Sri Lanka. 2. The decision to establish this facility was taken by the member countries during the 4th BIMSTEC Summit. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, or neither 1 nor 2? Next question is, consider the following statements with reference to Agneepath Scheme. 1. 75% of the total soldiers recruited under this scheme will be relieved from service after 4 years. 2. This scheme is only related to the recruitment of personnel below the rank of officer. 3. The candidates will be imparted training for 6 months and they will be posted for the next 3.5 years under this scheme. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, 1, 2 and 3, or none of the above? Next question is, consider the following statements. 1. SIPRI was established in 1966. 2. This organization works in the field of conflict, armament, arms control, disarmament and research. 3. India ranks third in the world in terms of military expenditure. Which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, 1, 2 and 3, or 2 and 3 only? Last question is, consider the following points with reference to the World Investment Report 2022. Country and volume of investment. 1. United States $367 billion. 2. China $181 billion. 3. Hong Kong $141 billion. Which of the above pairs is or are correctly matched? 1 only, 1, 2 and 3, 3 only, or none of the above?
So for the time being, that's all in this bulletin. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe Drishti IAS Hindi, English and PCS YouTube channels. At the end, let us have a look at few more events of the last week in other news.
The Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi has approved the Department of Telecommunications proposal for conducting 5G spectrum auction to provide 5G services to India. 5G spectrum bidders will be assigned spectrum for providing 5G services to the entrepreneurs as well as the consumers. The cabinet claims that the speed and capacity of 5G networks will be around 10 times higher than that of 4G services. The government of Thailand has decriminalized possessing and cultivating cannabis. However, the use of cannabis as a form of smoking is still prohibited. Thailand is the first country in Asia to decriminalize possessing and cultivating cannabis. Recently, the Nanhi Pari program was launched by the Northwest Delhi District Administration. It aims at providing a single window for various documentary proceedings related to childbirth. Furthermore, other essential services including birth certificates of children, Aadhaar card registration and opening of bank accounts for females admitted for delivery in government hospitals of the district are to be completed before the mother and child are discharged from the hospital. Under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, DPAM, that is Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, organized a conference on wealth creation in 75 cities of India. This conference was inaugurated through virtual medium at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. It aims at promoting investment among the Indian citizens. The Manitoba Legislative Assembly of Canada has passed the Turban Day Act. With the passage of this act, Turban Day will be celebrated now every year on 13th April in this province. April 13 has been chosen to celebrate the Turban Day because Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru of Sikhs, founded the Khalsa Panth on 13th April 1699. Recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone of development projects worth 3,050 crore rupees under the Gaurav Abhiyan in Navsari region of Gujarat. These projects will aid in improving water supply in this region as well as boosting connectivity and making life easier for citizens. A purchase policy has been notified by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting for the first time in the spirit of ease of doing business in Prasar Bharati. It aims at promoting the buying entities in all Prasar Bharati verticals, including All India Radio and Doordarshan, to make fair, equitable and transparent competitive bidding. Under this policy, the procurement process will be divided into several stages and it will aid in standardization of procurement process and reduce the time taken in this process. Ministry of Coal has launched Project Information and Management Module under Single Window Clearance System in New Delhi. It will provide a platform for obtaining various approvals for the operation of coal mines in India. A project proponent can apply for requisite approvals with a single registration interface through this system. Recently, APIDA, that is Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, organized an 8-day mango festival in Bahrain. The event aims at promoting mango's export.